I was born, as you know, where you now live in Vienna. And when I was very small, uh, my parents and I, uh, well, a gang of Nazis came into our home on Kristallnacht and dragged my father away. So I really think that my work is very deeply rooted in that early experience, but also, of course, I think of my life really like the pieces of a jigsaw puzzle coming together because there are so many different elements. My background my first job was with an offshoot of the RAND Corporation, the Systems Development Corporation, where way back when nobody was talking about systems analysis, I learned about it. Now it's become, a popular term. I'm also an attorney, and pattern recognition is really part of being a lawyer because people don't come to you and say, apply section 1222 of the civil code to my case. They say, oh, this and this happened, and then it's up to the attorney, isn't it, to figure it out. What is the applicable law, etc. But to go back to the roots, I witnessed cruelty, destructiveness, insensitivity, but I also witnessed something else that I today call spiritual courage. And it was my mother who displayed that courage. The courage, I call it spiritual courage because it's the courage not to slay the dragon, like we're taught this is courage, but the courage to stand up against injustice out of love. And she recognized one of the young Nazis as a former errand boy from the family business, and she got furious. I mean, how dare you do this to this man who has been so kind to you? I want him back. Now, she could have been killed. Many Jewish people were killed on Kristallnacht, so-called because of all the glass shattered in Jewish homes, in synagogues, in businesses. But by a miracle, she wasn't. By a miracle, well, some money passed hands. She obtained my father's release. By a miracle, we escaped. And that led me to the question that animates my research. Is all this cruelty, insensitivity, destructiveness inevitable? As we're told, as we talked about, human nature, right? Or are there alternatives? And if so, what are they? And to answer that question, I immediately could see that the old social categories don't answer it because there have been terrible regimes in every right, left, religious, secular, Eastern, Western, Northern, Southern. And I also by then realized something else, that it was looking at society through a very distorted and narrow lens that really does not take into account by any means the whole of society, the majority of society, women and children. And therefore, what we know today from neuroscience, to really fast forward to nurturing our humanity, really is so important because what does it tell us? It tells us that nothing less than how our brains develop, and with this, how we feel, how we think, how we act, how we vote. Why, after the Arab Spring, did people vote for a repressive regime? You have to ask yourself that question. Well, because it felt more familiar. You have to take the whole, including the family, into account. Now, fortunately, not everyone raised in domination families, grows up that way. But we also know, and I'm going to stop here and let you ask me a question, but we also know from neuroscience something very, very interesting, and this is all in nurturing our humanity, that the parts of our brains that help us really be resilient and see change and go with change are less developed in the brains of people who consider themselves very conservative, in my language, domination-oriented. They eventually get the change, but it takes them a long time. So what do you get? You get climate change denial. You get election result denial. It's follow the leader, follow the authority figure. You get COVID-19 denial. This makes no sense, does it? But it does if you look at the whole picture and understand that this is really something that we have to address. So the four cornerstones I've introduced start with childhood, go on to gender, and then go on to economics. But beyond capitalism and socialism, we need both markets, both businesses, and government policies. I mean, COVID-19 showed this writ large, didn't it? But a caring economics of partnerism. And I can talk more about that. And of course, narratives and new language. Because as Einstein said, we cannot solve problems with the same thinking that created them. And the language keeps us trapped, doesn't it?